Okay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We've got another episode of Back to the Beach with Kristin and Stephen for you. I'm, of course, Stephen Colletti.
And I'm Kristin Cavallari, and we have a very, very special episode for you guys. One that we've been talking about the entire season. We finally have a producer on. We have the one and only Liz Gateley. So excited to have you, Liz. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be the first producer to join. So thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Just a seed of an idea to then eventually being Laguna Beach had to have started with you, correct?
It did. It did. I actually had been working for MTV for about a month. I was brand new there. I was pregnant with my middle child, Gabby, and I was watching an episode of Made, if you remember that show.
Yeah.
It was the episode where the drama girl wanted to be a cheerleader, and there was a hallway conversation between her and the popular girls. And the moment she walked away, they commended the hallway in a way that I just said, those are the girls we need to do a show about. And I, like you, Kristin, had moved from Minnesota to Palos Verdes, which is very similar to Laguna, when I was 11. And I moved to this small seaside town where the kids, 16-year-olds, drove BMW convertibles. Parents went to Mammoth all weekend. We partied at these crazy houses with cops came with helicopters to break up the parties. And it was so similar. So as I was watching these episodes last night, which I hadn't seen also in 18 years, it brought me back to my own youth. But so I kind of had this inspiration moment, and I said, and so as I developed it further, the pitch was really a month later. I went into these pitch meetings that we had, and I said, I want to do a show that 90210 meets Heathers meets Dawson's Creek. That was the log line. And in Hollywood speak, as you both know, that's like a way to sell that gives people reference points. So my reference for 90210 is I actually wanted to shoot part of it in the high school. We can get there later why that didn't happen. And and then the Heathers reference, if you can believe it, it was before Mean Girls. So that was my reference for it to be kind of heightened, kind of, now the reference would be Mean Girls, kind of going right into the belly of the beast of the popular clique. And then the Dawson's Creek was something that would capture a small town, and that bubble that we talk so much about in this show, that I think, we landed the plane in the last 4 episodes on the wistfulness and the safety of that beachside. We first went to Beverly Hills High, actually.
So that is true.
That is absolutely true. We met with Dan Stepanowski, me and Adam. So I was living on the East Coast. We hired Gary Auerbach. We hired Morgan Fahey. And Adam DeVello walked in my office in New York, and he was barely a manager. He'd just been promoted from assistant, and he's like, I want to do the show. I get it. I believe in it. Send me out to LA. And we went up and down. So he talked Dan Stepanowski at Beverly Hills High, who was the assistant principal getting promoted, into doing a meeting with us. And I flew out there. We took him to Mr. Chow's. It was very fancy. It was very Beverly Hills. And he said, my first move as principal is not going to be this show. So, so I had grown up. I had grown up, and I went to UCLA. A lot of my friends grew up in the OC. And so I sent Adam down there because I really wanted that heightened, beautiful place. And so he found Laguna Beach High School. And I think we were in such a crunch then, because it was, by the time we found you guys, it was right after formal. There was the big fight that had happened at winter formal. And so we'd heard about everyone, and we found you guys. I think we found Lauren and Stephen first, and then Kristin, you were out of town. So everyone was like, you have to get this girl, Kristin. She's part of the clique. And we were like, damn, but we got to shoot now. But we waited for you to come back, and then they sent me the casting reel, and we were just like, oh my God. I mean, you could not have gotten a better sense of a love triangle, kids that grew up together. we knew Stephen and Lauren were gonna end up in San Francisco. Like we had our ending. It was like just
Oh
again,
my God. Wait,
So
so,
that was-
you knew the ending before we even
knew that-
began?
yeah, well, we knew at least the
blown
physical
away.
ending was gonna end up. I mean, we knew where it could go and that the engine
Wow.
and the machine was there. So it was all magical. I mean, I was just like, this is it. Like people ask me all the time,
Wow.
like, when was the time when you knew you had hits? And it's happened
Yeah.
to me like 2 other times, but I was like, I just knew the moment we found these kids. And it was really
Wow.
my vision to, I came from scripted. I had come from the script in LA and moved back to New York, but I wanted to make it feel like a high school drama, like that was the reference for 90210. So I didn't want confessionals. I wanted it to feel cinematic. And obviously, Gary and Sham were the ones that came up with the long lens look and the color palette and the lenses that um, so amazingly executed.
What did happen at Winter Formal? Like a big
Well,
fight?
it was right after the dance. All we heard was that like something happened in the bathroom, and Lauren
Oh.
and Kristin had got like everyone was talking about basically
Kristen,
a
what'd you
fight
do?
that happened.
You know what's
Do
so
guys
funny?
remember that?
I don't remember anything.
Well, you guys are younger than me, so I definitely remember just something had gone down. And it was, I think, when we met you guys, it was right when I think you guys were on a break, one of the
Yeah.
many,
Yep,
and Lauren,
yep.
Stephen had
One of the
just hooked
many.
up with Lauren, and so you guys were kind of trying to figure out where you were with each other. We shot in like late January, early February, and we only had 6 scenes. We only shot for 4 days. So we didn't
Yeah.
have a fully realized pilot. We only had, I think it was 11 minutes. I still have the beta of the presentation.
Oh, that's because we had that original presentation that we all saw, and then of course the pilot episode is different. Yeah.
It's totally different. It got greenlit off of that, and then but it takes, you guys know it takes 2 months to get a green light.
Yeah.
So by the time we got a green light, it was late February, March. We still were doing your deals of all the shows, the hills and the city. This really, obviously we asked you guys to say things and stuff, but when we started to pick up, you guys were in a very different place, and we had to make up for all that time. We had to kind of fill in the blank of what
Tell the
happened
story.
between February and
Mhm.
March. And that was when Stephen, like hearing you watch episodes 1, 2, and 3, like it was just probably so painful to ask you to go back and say like, well, what happened? And can you put yourself in these situations? But yeah, so then we had to we realized we were only, MTV had a very famous story about producing the halftime show, and that was why that year was the Janet Jackson incident. And so the school pulled out, and we were already engaged with you guys at the time, and we screened the pilot for the parents. Remember we did that montage?
Do you remember so the first tape, like you're talking about the Winter Formal incident that you get heard about. Now, is this in a packet from one of those packets that we filled out? Is this in a video interview that we did? Or how were you hearing this? And what was some of the first material that you saw on us before you guys eventually cut together that pilot presentation?
It was the casting reels, which MTV definitely, a lot of what it was everyone coming back, and I had daily meetings with Gary and Adam and Morgan, just feeding me little nuggets about the kids, and they were so excited, and I hadn't seen you guys. So all I had to go on was my image of what this group was. And so I was being fed those nuggets over conference calls. But the casting tape, and I'm sure your write-ups had those, which I think are somewhere on the web. We definitely.
Oh, wow. That would be a trip to go and see. Yeah.
Wait,
so
MTV definitely has those.
When you guys started interviewing us and talking to us, did you already in your head have an idea of who you wanted? Like, I need a girl who's going to be the outspoken one. I need the sweetheart, innocent girl. Did you have boxes for everybody?
No, not at all. And as I went back and rewatched this, like seeing Trey's hats and his t-shirt cut off on one arm. I'm like, you could not have in your wildest dreams have imagined this cast. You really couldn't have. Like, Kristin, you had a 3-6. Like, you were so smart and just were ready to own the world. I mean, watching you dress down that cop in the car episode was just so brilliant. And you guys just, what I always say is it was the dynamics were absolutely real. Like, as much as we produced
Yeah.
situations where you both walked into the nail salon, the
Yeah.
dynamics were real, which is why it was so authentic. And the other thing which you guys keyed in on is we plucked you out of oblivion. You were not showing up for a casting call. Like,
Yeah.
it was my idea. We went out and literally plucked a clique of friends who already had this going on.
Yep.
It wasn't like Jersey Shore or, where people were showing up and filling out. Like, we made you guys fill out casting sheets because we needed to know how old you were and who you were and what you like to do in your spare time. But we really tapped into the dynamics that were there. And yeah, we, in 21 minutes and 30 seconds, and that was what we had to get every episode down to. We
Mhm.
had to really define everyone with sharp edges. So we had to do an A and a B story in every episode, and a normal 1 hour drama would be 44 minutes, but 21:30, and I have this ingrained in my mind because it couldn't be a second over, and it was 3 acts, and we always had a B story. So some scenes, like, we couldn't meander and go in and out of conversation. We just had to get to that line. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of that stuff, that hearing you guys talk about it, was because we had so little time to tell the story we had. But yeah, so we did
It's
not manufacture, like, you guys were just brilliant, which is why we never franchised it. We were like, how could we do this? Like, this is just magic. And, Christina being the Reverend's daughter, like, that stuff was all real.
Yeah.
And we leaned into it and we crafted, things in broad strokes, but everything was really there. And that was the other thing I remember from the presentation tape is I was like, I want the main title to feel like a high school drama. I want, Lauren sketching something and Morgan in the boutique. And so we really did that main title. So that main title was also in the presentation to show the look and the feel. And I
When did you
remember,
guys? Oh, go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
I remember receiving the presentation after we shot, and I literally cried. I was just like, this is
Aw.
the most amazing looking thing.
Yeah.
And all the scene, I mean, it just looked so beautiful.
Mhm.
All credit to Gary and Sham Abed, as you guys have previously said.
Well, the fact that you had been working for MTV for 1 year, or for, sorry,
No,
1 month
1 month.
before, before getting the
Right.
show, they looked out there before, yeah, you started sprinkling that magic fairy dust on all sorts of shows. And so, yeah, amazing, I'm sure, to see that first presentation, see it come together. Is there something when you think, like you just said, you just watched the episodes for the first time in 18 years as well. But before that, when you think of the show, and I know people are asking you a lot about a certain moment that you knew you had something, but it sounds like pretty early on as you started to, these interviews are coming in, you knew that you had some characters. Is there one specific moment, maybe from an interview or from the pilot presentation, that you remember that kind of comes to your mind that maybe from time to time it stops and gives you a smile of like, I just remember when that first tape came in and I saw that I knew that like we had a great show.
Oh my God. I could spend hours answering that question. There were so many moments where you knew it. It just kind of built and built and built. But I think the casting tape for sure, just seeing your gorgeous faces. And I remember Brian Graydon, who's the head of MTV, saying to me while we were casting, he's like, Liz, can you really find 7 or 8 interesting kids that are beautiful? And I'm like, have you been to Southern California? Like, they're walking around everywhere. But that group in particular was just stunning. And then the presentation, I remember the dinner you guys had at Pomodoro and just like the real love that we saw in your eyes for each other. And the car scene. I love the car scene. It didn't end up really in the show, but we had a 3-minute clip of all the girls in a car, other than you, Kristin, just rocking out to it. Just captured high school and that nostalgic moment where you don't have any cares in the world. You're already into college, and you really just have, it just was that moment. But I think once we got into the series, I remember my heart fluttering when, and this is also a good anecdote for the listening audience, for you guys. So the moment where it's top of act 2 of episode 1, when the crane is lowering the palm tree, and Stephen, you were going to Lauren's house. We had a Gwen Stefani. It was Simple Life. So they've changed all the music, which is so unfortunate, because John Ernst, picked the perfect song, but we had that No Doubt song, Simple Life. I think it's All I Want Is That Simple Life. And it was over the tracking shot of the palm tree, and it was just like capturing the essence of luxury life in Southern California. Then I think that Five for Fighting song over you and Lauren making eyes at each other in her new house tour. I mean, and obviously the other thing that Gary and the team did was hire the best editors from the scripted world, which I think hanging on looks longer and that messiness really made a difference. And obviously we spent hours and hours perfecting when the music came in, and that cut from, the line about nobody were, I can't find any white dresses, to the whip pan. I mean, just the style guide of like the whip pan to you in the white dress, and all the lines. We would just sit for hours in the edit and just be like, we hope the audience gets this cut. And they got every moment. They got every moment that we wanted them to.
Yeah, no, it was genius. So you talked about having an A storyline and a B storyline. So if you have these kind of mapped out already, since we are really in high school, we are real kids, things change on a dime. How fluid did you guys have to be with those storylines if things were actually happening in our lives?
Well, that was the other thing. So once we also figured out, once we were greenlit, that we could only shoot, you have so much budget and so many camera hours in a day and so many days to shoot. So we could only shoot Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So a lot happened between Sunday night and Thursday. Like, you guys could have broken up and come back together 3 times.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
We had to invent the pickup. We were the first show to do a pickup. So we were just making it up as we went. We were like, okay, can you guys talk about what happened Tuesday night? And maybe you should go to dinner, because we didn't want to shoot inside your homes. You guys had lives, but that was really the impetus out of those scenes and the nail lines and can you go to dinner about this? But we did have to be very fluid. We would have a story meeting every Monday, and I would get the download of what was shot over the weekend. And that was really because I really lived this life, and I kind of live inside of the mind of a 17-year-old girl. I kind of knew where the cameras should go the next weekend, like where the heat was happening. And I would say, well, let's adjust. Maybe let's not do that, and let's adjust over here, because I really think this is gonna probably blow up, just predicting human behavior and what happens in high school. So we would have a story meeting every Monday, and then we would plan our weekend based around what was coming up in your life. And obviously there were moments we had to really produce. But a lot of it was so fun to hear your IRL terms that, Morgan and Christina were already going to New York. So there were a lot of things that were just happening at the end of the year for us to tap into. And then there were, the obvious moments of, camping trip and things that were more produced.
Is there a moment, and you're saying after just watching them, that sparked a memory maybe of something that didn't make it to air, or something that did make it to air that you guys were discussing for a while? this particular scene, something that happened. They're like, not sure if we should keep this in there or something like
But
that.
you guys could decide. I mean, there were definitely things where we protected the kids. There were some law enforcement things that happened in Cabo we kept out that not having to
Oh,
do with either of you two. But there were things that happened. We always said, look, at the end of the day, we love these kids and we want the show to go on a long time. So we did, you know, throughout the years we did all kinds of things behind the scenes to keep everyone mentally healthy, supported, and that kind of stuff. So nothing I want to mention here, but there's not one scene that I feel like we left on the cutting room floor. In fact, our everyone I the show became such a quick phenomenon that every single cross-functional group within MTV. I mean, we created 3 video games, we created a virtual world, we had flip-flops with Steven's face on them. Remember those?
that is
It
great.
just was so crazy that I had to kind of protect. Everyone wanted the extra scenes, and I was like, if there's an extra scene, I don't really want to share it with, you know, the social team. Well, we didn't even have a social team back then, but we didn't want to share the scenes because we also might need them for something later. So I think
Mhm.
the boutique scene, the dynamics kept, like I said, the dynamics were always real, but we did have to sometimes use things slightly out of order from what we had shot in January when we shot the pilot.
Right. So since, I mean, this kind of piggyback on Stephen's question, and what you were saying, but since we were in high school, was there anything that was just completely off limits? Obviously, you weren't going to show us drinking. You know, we always have the red Solo cups. Was there anything else that you can remember that you guys made sure to stay away from?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, if you rewatch, we all just rewatched it. It's very innocent. The show is
Yes.
very innocent. Everyone, you talked about the words hooking up. Like, we never talked about people having sex.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you would, I mean, thinking of Euphoria and the shows that are out there now, and even the reality shows, like, everything's out there. And I think that's what also was special about the show is we protected you guys that way. We never used the word sex or other explicit terms, even if the cast used them. So we always had in mind, like, these kids have bright futures. There was enough fun stuff where we could show debauchery of your last year in high school without us having to go there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that everyone that we've spoken to from our cast says the same thing. They would go back and do it all over again.
Mhm.
And
That's great
that's our
to hear.
feeling. And people sometimes people will say like, "Oh, do you regret that?" Like I could never. And it's not that big of a deal. And also, you guys did surround us with amazing people. Some of those relationships that were formed on the show with the crew um, is what made it so fun. It's a part of what also sparked the interest in me of doing what I do today, which is like I loved being in production. I love the camaraderie of all these people coming together to create something. And so we like to obviously make fun of all the stuff that happened on the show and what finally made it to air as far as what we were doing back in the day. But we give a lot of credit to you guys for what you created, the risks that you took to make this show. That's something that some people haven't really seen before, and pull it all together and show really the best take of a real look into what kids are going through in high school in 2004. So big ups on that. I'm wondering when you guys decided to put in the title card that says everything
Oh
that you see
yeah.
is real. Yeah.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that, and it means a lot to me that you guys feel that way, and that all the cast members would do it over again. We did not take lightly from the trust that your parents put in our hands.
Mhm.
Um, so, so it was midsummer, right before we were going to launch. We were probably on the 16th cut or 14th cut of episode 1. We were trying to piece together scenes that didn't make sense, and we didn't want to cave to testimonials. We really wanted to do something that was genre busting and groundbreaking, and we tested. Brian Green asked us to test the first episode, and people And focus groups, for those of you that don't know what they are, you screen a pilot. You typically do it in a room with about 20 kids who tell you their thoughts. And they did not understand the show. They were like, "Are these bad actors? Is this we're not quite we don't get it." They did not get it at all. And we were like, "Oh my gosh, they don't know it's real," because it was shot so beautifully
Oh.
and edited the way it was. We decided to put that card on the front. We also that was also when I really pushed to do the open in Lauren's VO because and
Mm.
Gary didn't want to do this because he's like, well, the show wasn't shot in her point of view. And I said, yes, but I feel like there's a way we have to have somebody narrate it. And um, you know, Lauren's the girl next door. She's the one that is the perfect person to choose. So we had to go and write those, and we had to write them kind of to what was happening in the episode. And we did always say, like, if there's anything you're not comfortable saying, don't say it. But we did write those to kind of, it was a combined previously on and kind of hint to what was going down in the episode. So, even the recall of we were on the I forgot you list, the recall to episode 1 of the black and white, like we spent a lot of time writing those, but it was really so that the audience could understand what was going on and what and direct them to what was going on in the episode. But so that card got put on very last minute, like a few weeks before, just to say this is real. This was all shot over a period of several months in Southern California. And so, and it's funny because Stephen, you're right. They're not on the ones that are online.
I was just gonna
That card
say.
is not on the first 3 episodes, but it was, it
Yeah.
definitely was on the ones that aired.
Oh. Okay.
And
Interesting.
I noticed that, yeah, that MTV, somebody went in and hacked up those episodes. There's like a wild ringing sound in episode 3 from a phone over the main titles. It's really
I
quite
love that you're
upsetting.
still picking up on those details.
Oh my
Like,
God.
this is probably why you're
You're
so great.
I would
Yeah.
go in the
Yeah.
middle. I would go in the next day into the edit, and I would make sure the music cue time to like Lauren's smile going to a frown, and I'd be like, "Who touched
Yep.
this? It's 3 seconds. It's 3.5 frames later," and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, an A went in the middle of the night." I'm like, "No." So we finally had this term, like, things are on the shelf, that this scene's not touchable by an overnight at someone cleaning up some of
Mhm.
the mix. So I was crazy. I took great care. We also thought about whether to subtitle and Chiron. So
Mm.
Cabo, Gary really didn't want a subtitle, but there were so many, it was so loud and there was so much great dialogue. So we had it out on that, and then
So much great dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Was there
So
ever
much
a
great
discussion about how many times you were using me saying the word slut? Because I think it's like 6 or 7 times. It's like the first time I watched it just recently, I'm like, okay, we get it. Like, come
I know.
on.
Well,
I said the fucking word.
I know, and
Yeah.
it's crazy, right? Because I have teenagers, and I know like slut shaming's a thing now, but we didn't like that wasn't stuff that we talked about
No.
back then, and we probably
Mm.
would have had to have like a town hall special after that episode.
These days,
nowadays.
Yeah.
But it was just a different time,
Yeah.
There's also
100%.
there's like a lot of words that you guys just wouldn't use that
Yep.
now, and it
Yep.
was a totally different time. So I stand by you. We've all been in a jealous rage, and I know
Yeah.
we like, we could just see your heartbreak. Like, we've all been in that situation, and I think that's why the audience really, it was so special. You guys really shared the most vulnerable pieces of your life, and that's why it was so relatable. But audience, truly, people come up to me and they're like, I feel like that show like got me through high school. And if pretty Kristin and beautiful Lauren and Stephen can get their heart broken, like, it just made me feel so much better about my life.
Mhm.
So just know you guys did a lot for a generation, and you guys are so special. And you also wrote your own lines. Like, I also love that you guys were like, those lines, even in Cabo or Dunzo or, Catherine, she got pretty. I mean, those moments were just genius. And
You
I
can't script
do,
those.
you
Yeah.
No, you
can't.
can't.
And Stephen, I'm gonna say a quote from something from this podcast that I wrote down that was so remarkable. You said, I think it was in episode 2 when you guys rewatched it. You said, I think, in my heart to make it work with you, but I really was scared and unsure it would actually work because I'd been hurt pretty devastatingly. And I almost knew deep down that I shouldn't be going back to this relationship, but I couldn't just let you go. I mean, you just said that out of your mouth just a few weeks ago. And the words that came out of your mouth, I mean, you're all truly, truly just magical people. And the words that came out of your mouth back then and now, it's just like you make hearts melt with your words
Oh,
over your
it's
broken heart.
true.
I tell people, these days, as kind of the shock for me is not like, oh my gosh, how embarrassing those moments are out there. Obviously, you'd like to have a couple things back, but to me, it's more of the underestimating the attention that came from it and the fame, truly not understanding what that was going to be like. And there's kind of, with Laguna, there's, it grew up as an artsy community. So there's a lot of like
Yes,
half the people in town are like, the show, like it's
I
just exploiting
remember.
Laguna, sensationalizing everyone there just being spoiled and rich. It's not necessarily a thing. So we took a lot of heat with that. And so it was kind of like in denial about it. And for all these years of it really being kind of a thing. But as of course years have gone on and more people continue to come up to me and talk about it, and you start to hear more people share their stories of relating to what they were going through at that time. And to me, that is something where, especially as I tell stories to this day, I mean, that's all you can hope for. And it's given me a wonderful piece of like, it actually did have there's a positive effect from the show. People are being able to relate to this. And that's something that has definitely put it in a good spot for me. So it's cool to see that.
Yeah, and the episodes coming up are so, like, I'm so glad. I was so relieved to see prom with you guys with your families and the pre-party with Trey, and then see graduation and your parents give you special gifts, your families. We got to show more of the families, and then
Mhm.
obviously the goodbyes. I mean, one of my favorite moments, to your previous question, was you and Trey skateboarding as your kind of final moment before you had to say goodbye. And as a kid that grew up in Southern California, where guys' bonding moments were surfing, skateboarding, or golf, that moment felt so nostalgic for me personally, but it just captured something that was just so, so special in that small town. And I feel like we did land the plane at the end of the sweetness and the nostalgia that we wanted to of that last year of high school, and having to say goodbye to friends that you used to take baths with. I mean, when we were in kindergarten, like when you were 2,
Yeah.
with playing on the beach as babies. And I think that no one can ever replicate that, because you guys were really thinking about that moment, and you could feel it. You could
Mhm.
totally feel
I
it.
agree with you. Watching that back, did get emotional seeing that scene, and no words are really spoken. I think as we're getting up there
Yes.
and we're getting started, sure, there's something,
Poetic.
but then, yeah, the way you guys crafted that, the way you edited that scene and the music behind it, it takes people to a place, and it, of course, took
Mhm.
me to a very specific place. I also laugh watching that scene with Trey and I kind of saying goodbye, and you can see this is where the producers are coming in and telling us like we want to, this is kind of a goodbye moment, so you guys need to kind of say goodbye. And Trey and I are kind of
Guys,
dancing
don't say
around
that.
each other. Yeah, we're like, all right, bro, see you later. But it's like, it's not really a sincere goodbye, because we wouldn't normally do that, but you have the more sincere one. But of course, for telling, a story and making it ready for television, we want to have that moment, because you've been following these characters and these best friends all the way up to this moment. So I love both of those scenes when we are saying goodbye. It's a really good episode. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me too.
very emotional. Liz, what are some of your proudest moments as a producer of Laguna Beach?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think a lot of what we just talked about. I mean, for me, to innovate and you know, the show gets a lot of credit for changing the landscape of how non-scripted television was approached, but to take kind of everything I knew from scripted and apply it to this real world was exciting, and just discovering all of you guys. I mean, I'm super proud of the humans you've become, and you're all so impressive. But I think just the fact that we created a whole new genre and kind of made it up as we went and had to figure it all out was an incredibly creative process with incredibly creative team of people of people we were all just trying to figure it out together. So and the music, and then we eventually we made history. We made history. I mean, it was one of the biggest finales on MTV. I got pulled out. I was shooting a pilot and got pulled out by like the president of MTV for the ratings we broke. But I think the best moment was we did a live. So the show had caught on, and we especially after Cabo, that was like the moment where it really became a hit. And then we did a live screening of the finale in the TRL studio in New York, and watching girls gasp when Lauren came out of the airport and Stephen waiting. I mean, I was bawling. I was like, this is exactly what you want. And the shot of the Golden Gate Bridge and the Maroon 5 song playing, it was just like, so that moment for me, knowing the impact we had on girls. And then I'll never forget, it was when JetBlue, my kids were little, and I would walk up and down and rock my babies on airplanes, and every single on JetBlue was, every single TV screen was on the show, and wow. I have so many memories, which would never happen now, right?
Yeah, right.
That would never happen now because everyone would have their own streaming video on their phones. But so many memories. One of the best, and this was like hurting 18-year-olds or 18-year-olds and a 17-year-old at the VMAs. That's a whole other episode of this. You guys have to have me back when I can talk about babysitting in Miami. Me and Trey running off our plane to catch another plane because and Morgan's white linen pants that were black muddy from all the clubs we took.
I think somebody found my fake ID in a pool is the story. Some magazine ran an article saying, Stephen, we found your fake ID, and it was so hot at that VMAs, we were carrying around little towels, and I think I took a picture somewhere on like a red carpet where I've got the towel over my head and I'm just like doing one of these. And so it paired perfectly with somebody just finding my fake ID like around and then putting in some magazine.
You guys were like, people always ask me, they're like, well, you guys did their hair and makeup and you guys dressed them. I'm like, no, these kids showed up that way. They had their own amazing people. Of course, we put like maybe you put lipstick on it.
Sure.
Yeah, for my opening scene.
For your opening scene. I think that was the only time, but like
that's the only time.
We given Lowe's, like I was like, no, we had our media training at Ruby's and like I remember you and Lauren showing up like looking camera ready. No high schoolers look like that, but you guys look like that every day. But I remember at the VMAs, the show hadn't come out yet, and everyone was like, who are those kids? And Lo had like a short satin skirt and a fur vest, and we lost Lo at the after party. And we're like, where's Lo? And suddenly she's like making out with some huge rocker. I don't even remember who he was. But
God, that's so great.
Oh my God, so many fun memories of those days. It was like a family. It really was.
It was.
We felt that with the crew. And honestly, I mean, we could do a whole nother episode on just, what you guys have gone on to do and what from the beginning with Laguna and what you created at MTV. And then of course, as your career is carried forward, working with Lifetime and then now Spotify. Truly a lot of masterful stuff, really impressive. And congratulations. I didn't know this until just recently. I just read about this last night. You won an Oscar? What the fuck?
I produced executive produced a film about girls in Afghanistan, and there's this program. I married a skateboarder from Santa Barbara, and so this guy came and spoke, who runs Skateistan, about I was an athlete when I was younger, but so I found out that girls can't do sports in Afghanistan, and they had started a program for girls, and they'd found a loophole in the law that allowed them to skateboard. And then once they built this program for girls to learn how to skateboard, but it was really the freedom of them escaping from being married off when they were 11 and 12. And Carol Dysinger was the director who directed it, and it won the documentary short in February 2020.
Wow.
Which was
amazing,
incredible, just to really just see a nugget of an idea. They came to speak at Lifetime, and I said, we should really do a documentary about this to raise awareness of and raise money for Skateistan. So yeah, that was crazy. And
it's amazing.
Did Teen Wolf and did you for Lifetime, and Surviving R. Kelly, and 16 and Pregnant, and a lot of fun MTV shows too.
What's
Run's House and Ridiculousness.
You've got, I mean, scripted, unscripted. When you're at home, what do you watch? What do you like to watch?
I watch the really dark stuff. So I love Euphoria. I have teenage kids, and people are like, wow, you watch that with your kids. But I always feel like parents should know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think the acting, talk about capturing what it's really like now, because that's the other thing that I marvel at, is like the stuff that the constant onslaught of what kids experience now. I don't think you could do Laguna Beach now either. I watch Ozark. I don't watch a lot of reality, ironically. I don't. My husband loves documentaries, so I end up watching them with him. But yeah, I watch the really dark stuff.
We really appreciate you coming on and shedding some light on the other side of the camera. We've really been looking forward to this. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, I love you guys so much, and so honored to be here, and I'm happy to contribute. And like I said, you guys are really, really good at this. It's been so fun to listen.
Oh, well, thanks for listening. Appreciate that. And thank you for everything, Liz. I mean, you started our careers, so we really appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that 10% check, you guys.
Yeah.
Want a piece of Uncommon James, please?
Yeah.
You need a
we made
promo
pennies
code,
that
Kristin.
first season. Yeah.
No,
Promo
that
code
is
Liz at
crazy.
TV.
You guys
Yeah.
really did make pennies, so I'm glad you're making up for it now.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Thank you for the wonderful idea and all that you've contributed. And of course, thanks for coming on with us. It's been really special. So appreciate it, and look forward to talking again soon.
Yeah, great to see you guys.
Thanks, Liz.
Bye.